All right, guys, so we're getting started here in Classic, and I just got my add-ons set up. So first look at our guy here, and he's in the Valley of Trials, which is the Orc and Troll starter area. And they're starting us off, it looks like, with just a hearthstone, a little bit of water and food. We got one stack of arrows and no gold. So pretty neat when you think of it that everyone here is really going to be starting from scratch because nobody's got bags, nobody has gold, and if I think about it, I think that's the only time that this has happened in World of Warcraft history other than when the game first released. Because even if you're talking about BC or anything else, people still had BOAs or, you know, at least gold and bags. So that was kind of the first thing was, you know, when WoW originally released and now for Classic because it's kind of standalone. So that's pretty neat. First quest that we have is to kill 10 boars. And as I'm leveling here, I'd like to tell you guys some stories. Before I get to that, if you guys look over to my right here, you're going to see the numbers ticking. That is an add-on that's called Speedrun Splits. And I've got that add-on so that I can see my total leveling time and my time per level. So the first story I'd like to share with you guys is the one about how I chose my class here for WoW Classic, because that was really difficult for me. I'm sure a lot of you guys had the same struggle because there's this, you know, kind of pull to nostalgia with Classic already. Basically that like, hey, do I want to play what I played in the original game or do I want to try something new? New class for me. And so I thought about that to start with. So first item we got some replacement pants. I played in the original game a Tauren warrior. He was arms spec, which is the PvP spec, utilizing a two-handed weapon. And the fun part of that spec is that you can raid with it a little bit to start with, and it's just great in player versus player combat. My most fond memories of the original WoW are charging in on my huge Tauren warrior and hamstringing my opponent in PvP and then just going to town on them without them being able to get away. Really a fun class. Now, warrior in Classic has some ups and downs to it that you really have to think about before you roll it. The first great thing about warriors in Classic is that they have 3 specs that really work well at 60, which a lot of classes don't have. So warriors have arms, which is the PvP spec, which when paired with a healer is really a top spec, followed by the Fury spec, which is a dual wield spec that's really good for boss damage. Last one here, till I level. Boom, that's level 2 in 4 minutes and 56 seconds. I'm going to be stopping and opening up my character window each level. Just so I can take a screenshot. And then Blizzard also made warriors the best tanks in the original WoW. And they intended them to be that way. Which might seem strange to people now that play and can play a bear druid or a paladin or a death knight or a monk just as easily as a warrior. But in the original game, they didn't have the rest of the classes with all the tools. For instance, they didn't give Paladin tanks a taunt until Burning Crusade. So warriors were the top tanks. So warriors are really the best class for group content. And so those are all positives for the warrior. The warrior also gets to do some cool things. One of the cool things they get to do is handle some of the best weapons in the game, like Sulfuras, Hand of Ragnaros, which is a huge legendary fire mace that you get parts for out of Molten Core. And they also can wield Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, which is this giant one-handed tanking sword that has a lightning proc and looks awesome. So warriors get to handle some great weapons. And then the last thing that I really think is neat about warriors here in Classic is that at some point, once the phases are done rolling out for Classic, this will become very much like twinking, because there won't be any more gear to get at a certain point. So you get the best gear and the best enchants from Nax, And then at that point, it's going to be the classes that are very gear dependent that are powerful, and warriors are the most gear dependent class. So warriors will do really great in that final gear set that comes along with some other classes. Now, warriors do have some weaknesses depending on how you play. The first one is that they're widely considered the most difficult class to level, at least for people like me that are not very good at the game. So this is our first hostile mob. His name is Sarkoth, and this is a quest here. Quest mob. And so warriors are not a good class as far as getting leveled up because they didn't give them a heal of any type in the original game. So if you pull too many mobs, you can just try to pop all your cooldowns and basically live, which can still be difficult on a warrior. And I died so much on my warrior. I mean, you go into an area and you accidentally pull one extra mob, or you accidentally pull an elite mob, anything like that, and you can be in a lot of trouble. And so warrior for me was difficult. And I really, the leveling process was super slow. And so coming back now, I was like, man, I don't really know if I want to go through that again. And also warriors are great for group content, but I'm not going to be doing heavy group content. I'd like to do each one of the raids once all the way through just to see all the content. And same thing with the dungeons. But after that, I just want to do all the quests in PvP. So I'm going to be super casual here in Classic. So because of that, warrior is just not really a great fit for me. One of the things that I'd like to overcome that happened to me in Classic is I had the full blue PvP set. And my weapon was the Unstoppable Force, which is pretty much the first epic that most people get. You can get from PvP. And it's a giant mace with a boar's head as the mallet part of the mace. And that was like the best gear I ever got in the original game. And if I accidentally pulled an elite or too many mobs, it was still lights out for Matt. So, that was not a great feeling. That's level 3, guys, in 8 minutes and 51 seconds. Not a great feeling for somebody to put all this time into leveling up, just that you get, one elite mob and it's over for you. So I wanted a class that could solo better than warriors. Now, I'm sure that people that have been playing for a long time or are more skilled, maybe you can do really great on warriors, but I couldn't. So the warrior was a pass for me here for Classic, guys. The next thing that I had to kind of consider was the Paladin. And this is where my immaturity really took over, is I was quite considering rolling a Ret Paladin. I would have rolled a Dwarf, and I would have named him Smashbringer. Because Ashbringer is the most iconic weapon in World of Warcraft history, and you can get it in the original WoW if you get lucky and you're in a great raid team in Naxx. So the thought of rolling around on a Dwarf Paladin named Smashbringer with the Ashbringer was very tempting for my immature side. And the issue is I spent some time looking up how the classes played, guys. And this is sorry, I have to interrupt my story for a second. This is weird. You get this nostalgia thing with Classic because they've changed the game so many times since then. In the later game, there's like these pens out here where the boars are and stuff, and they don't have them in Classic, so that's a little weird. I'm still trying to kind of get used to which version of the game I'm on here. But man, the nostalgia is real. I love this. I love that they let us come back to Classic. So I thought about that, and I went and I found this website that was called Icy Veins Classic. And this gave you, you can Google that, it gives you all the rotations for every class at level 60. So I went and looked, and my rotation as a Ret Paladin was going to be the Judgment spell, followed by the Consecration spell, and then off healing and off cleansing as a Ret Paladin. So what's the problem with that? Well, I can hardly keep myself alive, guys, in most raid environments. Then I'm supposed to be over in the corner, and I'm supposed to lay on hands or cleanse the poison off a tank or something important, and I'm trying to do, elite damage with a meme spec in the corner. It just wasn't going to work. Hold on, this is the Hunter Trainer. Let me see if I can get any skills. Okay, it's every 2 levels, I think, in Classic. And Track Beast is the first one. That was only 10 copper, so I'll put that on my bar. Here we go. I think I just got to pick up some quest. So it was also kind of weird to think that I would wield the Ashbringer and then not even have a button press attack like a Mortal Strike or even a Storm Strike every 20 seconds in order to use it. That was weird to me. And so I was kind of like, what's really the point of that? It just to look awesome, I guess, basically, but it just wasn't a good fit. So then I went to Tank Paladin, which are pretty cool, but Tank Paladins were gimped in Classic. Oh, I remember this quest, guys. This is the one where you hit the dudes over the head with the blackjack that are asleep instead of working. Hold on, I gotta smack this guy quick. So if I'm going to pick a tank class in Classic, I'm at least going to pick the best tank class with all the tools and a taunt. I'm not going to have the raid relying on me to keep aggro and then the boss runs away to go kill the healer or the lead DPS and I can't even taunt it back. That just makes no sense to me. So the Paladin tank was out and the Paladin Retribution spec was out, and I don't play healers for the same reason I just mentioned. I'm too selfish in-game, and I don't want to be responsible for keeping teammates alive. So the Paladin threw the whole class out at that point for me here in Classic. Then I'll go through some classes that I'm not really interested in at all. I didn't really consider. The first one is Rogue. Rogue is pretty much the opposite of how I play altogether. So Rogue is slower in stealth in Classic, and I want to run faster, not slower. Rogue has its resource is called Energy. And it's like a use and wait type of system. It's not good for my personality at all, again, with the patience. And then Rogue uses a system of combo points, which you use it up and wait as well. So none of this stuff even sounds remotely appealing to me. So Rogue was out, all three specs. Then I went to Feral Druid. Now, Feral was a little bit more of a hard call than the Rogue was, even though you're primarily playing a Rogue style of gameplay. And the reason for that was because the Feral Druid in Classic, is both a DPS and a tank. And that was very interesting to me. Because if you put your talent points the right way, you can DPS most of the time for your raid and then switch over to tank when they need you. So I thought, oh, that'd be really make me a very useful player. The problem is that the majority of the time I would be in the cat spec doing Rogue DPS, which is the same system as Rogues, and I don't enjoy. So the Feral Druid was out. Then the Resto Druid was out, and the last thing that I looked at was Boomkin. Now, I don't really play caster-type characters, guys, but I just wanted to look at it and see what the rotation was. This is where I started to learn even more about Classic. What I learned, and a lot of you guys probably know all this stuff, but it's news to me. I better hustle over here because these guys are going to wake up, and so I want to get them while they're still sleeping. Is that, believe it or not, the rotation for the Boomkin, the Moonkin, Balanced Druid, whatever you want to call it, I remember that path. That goes to Ratchet. Is only one spell. Boomkin's rotation in raids is only one spell, a spell called Starfire, because it's the most mana efficient and damaging spell. So I thought, well, how can that be? They've got those dots and a bunch of other stuff they can do. And so what it is that there's this thing that I read about. It's called the debuff limit. And the debuff limit means you can only have so many damage over time abilities on a boss at one time. And the raid leader is going to want the most powerful ones, which are going to be like Warrior's Dots and Warlock Dots. So even me as a hunter, I don't use my Serpent Sting dot because they want to make sure that the more powerful dots are on there. So because of that, the druid just cast the one spell over and over. And I was like, well, I'm a pretty terrible player, but even I want to cast more than one spell for a rotation. So it just wasn't going to work out. So the druid altogether was a hard pass. This dude just went right back to sleep. You are being particularly lazy. All right, that quest is already done. Nice. Okay, so then I went onto the casters, which, like I said, I don't generally play. I really like an in-your-face type of a combat. And so the first one was the Priest. Now, Priest are a little interesting. Both Holy and Discipline are not of interest to me, but Shadow was. So I looked into Shadow, and the reason that Shadow was interesting is because they're super powerful in group and world solo PvP. And I remember just being destroyed by Shadow Priest often in world PvP. They weren't very common, however, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of them. But in the original World of Warcraft, Priest had extra spells based on their race. And so the dwarf had the best racial abilities, which was called Fear Ward. So my one way to get away from an opponent was to fear them and run away, or fear them and bandage, and dwarves could even fight back against that. So you'd go against a dwarven priest, and they could really do some crazy damage to you. But I just looked at the raid rotation. It was, put up your dot and then push 2 spells, and I was kind of just like, I don't really think this is for me. I don't enjoy casters, and I'd hate to get all the way to max level and then have to reroll because I don't enjoy the whole system of combat at 60. So I passed on the Priest. Same, Mage is just completely out for me. Never been into mages. Not a fan, really. Warlock I had to give a lot more consideration to because I have a friend that plays an Affliction Warlock, and he has done so through all the WoW expansions really successfully. Let me take a screenshot here. That's level 4 guys in 1808. And it's been, for him, I mean, he can pull a lot of mobs and dot them all up and have his Voidwalker clean up. And he does really well with that spec. And they're very powerful both in raiding and PvP. So I looked at that. But throwing up your dots and then just casting Shadow Bolt over and over, again, just not really what I thought I would be most interested in, guys. Let's see here. No more quests to turn in. I think I got my level 4, though, so I should get some more skills or a skill. Let's see. We got Aspect of the Monkey, which is a dodge increase. Okay. And we got Serpent Sting, which is my damage over time. Okay. And I did make macros for my cast. These are not my macros. I'll put the link to them in the description of the video below. But they basically just have pet attack and auto shot written into them. I got these off a website. So when I set up my add-ons, I tried them and they all worked. So that was good. Okay. So we're back to Cactus Apples, Scorpion Worker Tails, let's see, a pick, and Familiars. Easy day. All right. And so the Warlock, for me, I just didn't think I was going to enjoy at max level. And so I passed on that as well. Then the last thing that I had to do, guys, all that was left for me to choose from, and is actually a pretty hard choice, was Shaman and Hunter. And I liked both of them for different reasons. Now, Shaman I'll start with, because obviously, ultimately, I didn't choose Shaman. Shaman had some really unique benefits I found out about in Classic. The first one is that if you guys look at my Hearthstone here, you see it's an hour. And there's no way to shorten that in Classic because there's no guild perks or anything. The only class that has a benefit there is the Shaman. They have a spell that every 15 minutes they can use that's called Astral Recall. Now, for a person that and that's a free 15-minute Hearthstone in addition to your regular Hearthstone. So for a person like me that likes to farm and do professions and all that kind of stuff, that was really a big draw. A further draw was that Shaman have what I think is the best speed increase in Classic, which is 40% right at level 20, and it's called Ghost Wolf. And I think you can talent to make it even faster to use too. So those two things were really attractive. And the last thing that I looked at that I was interested in was that it was melee. I've always really enjoyed melee classes and chasing down my opponents. And Shaman have a two-handed spec called Enhancement that you can start to use a two-hander at level 20. So I was really interested in all that. So then it kind of came to the rotation, guys. So when I looked at the rotation for Shaman, this is where it kind of broke down for me. It was every 20 seconds you could use your main attack, which was called Storm Strike. Then you could shock every 6 seconds. And then the rest of the time you're just auto-attacking, and then you update some totems every 2 minutes and some every 1 minute. So that's a lot of just standing there and auto-attacking to me. And then you're off healing and off, you know, putting different totems down when your raid needs them at different times. Well, this is going to sound a bit selfish, but that's fine. It's you know, everybody has their own character and they play how they want. I didn't want the responsibility of always having to keep the right totems up and switch totems out for how my raid wanted and all that type of stuff. It just sounded kind of like a bother. Also, to just have to spend your first 4 cooldowns dropping totems, again, you know, just not really something I thought I was going to like, guys. So then it came to Hunter. Now, Hunter had all good points except for one. So the first great point about Hunter is they have a speed increase, not as good as Shaman. It's 30%. It's called Aspect of the Cheetah, but it's also instant. And you can talent for it to be 36% in the Beast Mastery tree if you'd like. And then Hunters also have a pet. So the pet, when properly talented, from my understanding in the Beast Mastery tree, and I have not played a Hunter in Classic, guys, so I'm going to be learning this live in front of you. The pets are supposed to be very powerful, and they are, from everything I've read, the best leveling and the best soloing spec in all of Classic WoW. The Beast Mastery Hunter is. So basically, your pet can act both as a tank and a DPS for you. Let's see. I think that pick is in the cave, so I don't think I'm going to do that one, guys. I think I'm simply going to do these familiars, and then I'm going to head back to town, clean out my bags, and then I'll do the last 2 quests kind of at the same time. So Hunters had the speed increase. They're great soloers. They have the pet. I'm an animal lover, and I really like you know, having a pet companion, so that was interesting to me. Like I said, with the warrior being such a weak solo spec, the thought of being able to occasionally do group quests by myself and to be able to just go out in the world and farm really quickly and effectively was very attractive to me. And I have played a Hunter and enjoyed it in other expansions. I've played pretty much every class, you know, at least as alts through various expansions. I'm not sure who got the tag on that one. I think they did. Okay. There's one right here. Oops, if I can click on him. So those things were all, you know, of interest to me with the Hunter. There was only one thing negatively that I was concerned about with the Hunter, and that is that anytime I've done a PvP character before, I've always picked classes that chased other characters down and, you know, secured them and then beat them up. You know, the kind of the chase character. And this will be a character where you're trying to get away from people and lay traps and create distance. And I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that in a PvP scenario. That'll be new to me. So how I've kind of decided that that's not a big deal to me is if Hunter is the best farming class in the game, and I get it to level 60, and I don't enjoy the PvP, I will then have an alt that is very powerful at farming and can solo all types of content that they can use to make gold or farm materials or anything else that I need, and I can always go back and roll a warrior if I just want to do warrior PvP. So that's kind of how I've decided that the Hunter is probably the best fit for me here in Classic. And I really do hope that I enjoy the PvP so that I don't have to roll another character and go through the leveling process again, because from what I remember, it was pretty brutal in Classic. The way that I plan to level as quickly as I can here is by duplicating Joanna's method, of course, which is that I'm always going to be trying to pull mobs on my way to and from my quest objectives. And then just basically to follow, I do have a leveling or an add-on, I guess, in general. To let it catch up here because it hasn't caught up to me yet. This one's called Zygor Guides, and I have this one for the retail game already, so I just left it here for Classic because they do have a leveling system baked in. It's pretty good. It's basically just a step-by-step go here, then do this type of a thing. So I'll use that one. There's one other one called Doogie, D-U-G-I, that I found for Classic. And then A free one that you guys can get your hands on is the character that inspired this video series, which was Joanna. So if you just type, you can look up Joanna's content 2 different ways. If you want to go to the website and see the fastest way to level each race, just type Joanna leveling guide. It'll show it to you in Google. Or if you guys go to YouTube, type in Joanna 1 through 60 unedited leveling, and you'll see Joanna level all the way through 1 through 60 totally unedited, which is pretty neat when you see it. And you realize kind of how repetitive a fast leveling process is. No, he got that one. Okay. Here we got some more. 3 more. There should be 3 here if nobody tags them. So that's how I picked the Hunter, guys. I think I'm going to be pretty happy with my choice. Like I said, I've played Hunters in other expansions. Hunter is a very powerful class in the retail game. The pet is super powerful. I think the pets in retail, at level 1 you get your pet, and you don't have to carry food or ammunition. And your pet starts with, I think their sprint at level 1, and the pets also can taunt, I think, from like 25 yards away. So basically, it's like impossible to lose aggro to your pet if your taunt is on. So, but this is classic, and every class has weird things, that you have to carry, different tomes or totems or regents and all this type of stuff. And so I think the companionship of just being out here with a pet will be a really great fit for me. So what I'd like to do, guys, if you guys put in the comments, if anybody actually watches this video, if you guys will put in the comments what you played in the original WoW and what you chose to play in Classic and why, if you changed. I'm interested to see, and I'll answer any comments that come in. I'm interested to see why you guys did that. Man, boar heaven here on the way back. Just trying to knock these out as I go. And the Hunter rotation in raiding, I looked it up, is you auto-shot, which is its own shot in Classic. That's why I've got it on its own button and its own macro here. You auto-shot followed by an aimed shot, followed by an auto-shot, followed by your multi-shot, which is your AoE. And that's it. So it's, just a couple of button presses, and it shouldn't be too hard to keep track of. But it's more than one button, which is what a lot of classes push over and over in Classic. And so I think it's going to be a good class to raid with. And I'll have to learn, the pet control here in Classic. I macroed a lot of it in, so hopefully that works well for me in PvP and raiding. But I'm not going to be doing any PvP or raiding here in this video series. I'm simply going to be questing and grinding mobs on my way to and from the quest. Okay, so let me get my guide going here so I don't miss anything. I'll try to sell my junk first so that if I get quest items, I can have room for them. There we go. One in here. Yep. The den. And last one right here. No skills to pick up, I don't think, because I didn't have to hit level 6 first. New hatchet. Okay, guys, that is level 5 in 30 minutes and 26 seconds. So, trucking along pretty good here, I think. Let's see, anything else I need to sell? Sell that. These have a stamina buff, and this doesn't. So I'll sell that so I can carry as much stuff as possible and put that on my bars. And then, let's see, I might have... Let me just grab a couple more sets of arrows because I want to try to make sure I can buy all my skills here. Hopefully I can afford them. Okay, so the last 2 quests, I think I got those. Yep, no problem. Okay. Just kill stuff on my way back to the cave. And I'll share another short story with you guys here because I have a minute left in this video as I'm going up to the next area, and that is that I'm going to be mining and skinning through this video. I already thought a lot about how I wanted to do it if I wanted to skip professions, but I can't stand not to be able to have bags and mounts at the appropriate level. That would really bother me, especially after playing retail, and I know that that will slow me down in my leveling. But that's fine. It's my video, right? I can do what I want. So what I've decided is to kind of use that to hopefully help you guys a little bit more if you're watching this series and you're not great at leveling quickly, like I'm not. But I am pretty good at making gold. Now, I'm not one of those people that just sits there and plays the auction house all the time. I actually had to learn about making gold the hard way. So I'll share with you guys a pretty embarrassing story about how I learned to make gold in the original World of Warcraft. So I was level 38 on my Tauren Warrior, and I had not even enough money every time I leveled up every 2 levels to be able to get my next set of skills. So I was using the basic skills that I thought I needed in my rotation. Some skills I didn't even have, and some skills I was behind on ranks on because I never had enough money to buy my skills. And so I was level 38, and I was supposed to have 100 gold at level 40 in order to buy my mount. And I saw people right at level 40 running around on their mounts. And so I was like, well, how in the world are they doing that? I had 7 gold. So I was kind of complaining to a guildmate that I had befriended, and I was telling him, like, I don't know how you guys have all this gold. Like, I'm so broke. I can't afford bigger bags. I can't afford, you know, all my skills, and I'm supposed to have 100 gold for a mount. Is that only like, you know, do you get that if this is your second character? What is that? And he's like, no, it should be pretty easy. He goes, well, what are your professions to start with? And I said, well, I don't have any professions. I was just trying to kind of get leveled up in the game, and then I thought I would do my professions when I got, you know, my character more built up. And he goes, well, there's your first mistake. He goes, you're going to do dual gathering. And I said, well, what's dual gathering? And he said, dual gathering is where you take 2 gathering professions and then you sell everything on the auction house. And he's like, are you using the auction house right now? And I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, that's your second huge mistake. So what he had me do is he goes, go, oops, I got a guy just spawned right behind me here. He said, go and pick up mining and skinning. I said, okay. And he goes, just run around one of the starter zones and get them both up to 75, and then come and whisper me back. So I did that. And so I had him on what was Ventrilo at the time was the voice system that we used. And he said, all right, I'm going to teach you an auction house add-on. And I said, well, I don't have any add-ons. And he was like, man, Matt, you don't know anything. And I was like, no, it's my first MMO I've ever played. I had no idea what I was doing. But he was nice enough to help me. So he had me install an add-on at the time that was called Auctioneer. I use a lighter weight version of that now called Auctionator that I like better. But he had me install Auctioneer, and that was an add-on that you basically could go and click an item out of your bags, and it would put it on the auction house for you for 1 silver less than whoever had the least expensive stack. So let me give you an example. Like, let's say you were selling copper bars, and somebody else had a stack of coppers up there for 2 gold. What you could do is go with this add-on, and it would automatically search all the auctions, and it would put your auction up there for 1 gold, 99 silver. So you were the cheapest auction, so your stuff would always sell first. And so he said, you're to do that with every single thing in your bags. You're to do that with meat, with cloth, with green items, with anything that you don't need to use on your main character. So he had me create a bank alt, because he said you don't want to run all this stuff back on your main character all the time and lose leveling time. And I was like, okay. So I created a bank alt, and he had me set up Auctioneer, and I started to sell the stuff that I had got for mining and skinning up to level 75 for those. Okay. So I got a little bit of gold, and I got really excited. So he had me keep going until I had them leveled up to, you know, the level that I was on with my character, 38 at the time. So I was going around, and I had mining and skinning up as high as I could get them with mobs my own level. And then he goes, okay, well, now what you need to do is you need to farm. And I go, well, what does that mean? And he goes, you need to find a place where you can use both your professions to, I got to destroy something here, to make money. He goes, do you know anywhere that's like mining and skinning your level that's really good? And I said, well, I remember that I went through an area there's an area called Hillsbred Foothills. It's like a lower 30 zone, mid 30 zone on the Horde side. I think it's the 3rd zone in succession. You do like Terseful Glades, then Silverfine Forest, and then Hillsbred Foothills. So I was there in like my early 30s, and there was a cave that I had gone in that I remember it had a whole bunch of ore in it. And I had to do this quest in there called, I think, Helecular's Rod, which is a quest where you just had to kill a whole mess of Yetis. And I had seen somebody in there skinning the Yetis, and I thought that was weird because they looked like a humanoid mob, and I didn't know you could skin humanoid mobs. So there was somebody in there skinning it, so I thought, well, if I could skin those Yetis and I could mine at the same time, that would be pretty good. I go, but what do I do with this like the farming? What are you talking about? And he goes, well, what you need to do is, okay, I got to wait for this guy to respawn. This is like the last guy in here. It's an orc that's like the first warlock. There's a whole story with these warlocks, and the first instance called Ragefire Chasm? I don't know how to say it, with Horde. But anyway, so I'll wait for him. And so I went to this cave, and I mined all the ore. I killed and skinned all the Yetis, and I even got a chest while I was in there. And it wasn't even like 20 minutes, and my bags were completely full. And he goes, okay, now as soon as you're full, I want you to run back to town and mail everything in your bags over to your bank alt. And then every hour, because mail takes an hour in Classic, every hour, log into your bank alt and post everything on the auction house. I was like, okay, I can do that, no problem. Here we go, last dude. The boss. I go, well, how long do I do this for? And he goes, well, how long are you playing tonight? And I ended up playing that night for like 4.5, almost 5 hours. And he's like, just do it the whole night. Don't do anything else. So while I was in this cave, near the end of the night, I actually got level 40 from killing all these Yetis. Here we go. We are done. And so for 5 hours, I was running in and out of the cave every 20 minutes and just sending everything to the alt and throwing it all up on the auction house. And I go, okay, well, how long is this stuff going to take to sell? And he said, probably not very long. So I put every single thing I had on the auction house, and I went to bed that night. And this moment for me was so like eye-opening and critical to me for how I played the rest of my WoW expansions. I still remember the amount of gold that I had. So I logged back on and the next morning to see if any of my stuff had sold. And I had 138 gold from one night of farming. So 131 of that I didn't have the night before. Just from selling, 5 hours worth of ore, greens, and cloth, and anything else that I could get in there from the Yetis. Let's see, I think I bought my skills, so I think I just need to get my arrows. 2, 3. And so I was like, okay, wow, that's pretty crazy. So basically my whole gameplay in the World of Warcraft was completely changed by the fact that that guy that was nice to me that night and basically explained add-ons, professions, and farming. And that's the first time I really realized how powerful farming is in World of Warcraft. So what I'm going to be doing in this video series is right from level, let's see, what am I? Level 5, I'm going to take mining and skinning, and every ore node I come across, I am going to mine it. And every mob that I kill, I'm going to skin it. And I'm just going to sell all that on the auction house. And I want to see, as the second challenge, the first one being how fast can I get leveled 1 through 60, I want to see how much gold can I make by level 60. So I hope that that part is a little bit more useful to you guys than the speed leveling part, because I don't really know that I'm going to be that fast, especially when you can watch somebody like Joanna absolutely go through the game at breakneck speed way faster than me. But hopefully with the gold making part, I can show you guys some things that will be useful to you. And I have some strategies that I'm hoping will still work in Classic that work back in Vanilla. So if I say vanilla, I'm referring to the old original game and classic the game now, but it's the same game, I guess. I could call it either one, so I'll just say classic. And that was the first starter area. The Orc starter area is not my favorite. It's not a bad one. The Valley of Trials is pretty decent. There's the Horde flags. My favorite is Mulgore, due to the mountains and the green rolling hills and the huge Stone Bowl Lake in the middle. So I think it's a good place to stop the video, guys, because that's 1 through 5. And we did that in 41 minutes and 55 seconds. So I will catch you guys in the next one. Please check it out. Thanks.